The night of the broadcast began as a test of fear across. 1,000 systems of foreign armada opened a signal and forced it into every channel. They controlled screens filled with cities seen from above and with crowds trapped in plazas in transit. Halls the invaders wanted witnesses, not just victims. They believed terror multiplied when shared on Earth. People saw neighbors fall and shelters fail, and the sound vanished because the feed carried no audio, only the image of Order breaking 7 million humans were ended, while the galaxy watched, and the invaders spoke calmly through text banners that floated across the images. This was the price of refusal. This was the lesson for any world that would not kneel Earth, did not kneel Adam, stood. In a control room far below the surface, while the broadcast looped on a wall that no one could bring themselves to turn off, he was not a soldier by training, but he had been placed among them because he could count faster than most, and because he did not freeze when numbers climbed beyond comfort. He counted ships and trajectories and energy curves and gaps in coverage beside him. Mira kept her hands still and her breathing slow as she coordinated evacuations that were all ready to latch on. Listened to old radio chatter from the first contact days, looking for a pattern that others had missed. None of them spoke about anger because it was. Everywhere the invaders expected a broken world. They expected riots and surrender in a single voice. Begging for terms, what they met instead was quiet, not silence of fear, but the quiet of work. Every city not shown on the feed went dark by design. Every transmitter was wrapped in noise and decoys. The planet learned to hide itself from the eyes that had hunted it. The invaders laughed on their channels and promised another demonstration. They did not understand the change that had begun. Human history had been a long argument with limits of distance and hunger and time. When those limits pressed too hard, humans did not accept them. They bent them or broke them together. The first response was not a weapon, but a net lattice of sensors and mirrors thrown into odd orbits. Using scrap and speed, it was built by crews that slept in shifts and argued over coffee and kept going. The lattice did not attack, it watched within days. Adam had a map that no one else in the galaxy had ever drawn. It showed how the invaders moved when they thought no one could sit, showed their pride, their fleets traveled like banners, not swarms. Their command ships shone brighter than escorts. Their doctrine believed shock ended wars quickly. They had never fought a species that learned from pain at scale. Mira brought the second response online. It was called shelter, but it was more than that. Cities folded into themselves and rerouted power and water through old bone strains. Became walls, and walls became roads. The world practiced vanishing while remaining alive. Invaders returned to the broadcast and found empty plazas and dark skies. They declared victory anyway and began the sweep. That was the moment John found the flaw. He noticed a pause that repeated whenever the invaders shifted targets. A hesitation too small to matter to them, but large enough to matter to humans. It came from a shared control ritual across their fleets. They synchronized decisions to maintain authority. Authority cost time. Humans spent that time. Third response was a message, not a plea and not a threat. It was a proof. Sent a single compressed stream to every receiver that could be reached. It showed the lattice and the shelters and the pause. It showed the invaders watching themselves be watched. The message ended with a simple line we learned from youth. Invaders reacted with fury. They accelerated plans and sent hunters into the dark. They found mirrors that burned and decoys that sang and minds that were not minds but questions. Each hunter that vanished taught the lattice. Maraudum refined the map. Mira refined the vanished. Joan refined the timing. When the first human strike came, it was small. Convoy lost power and drifted. Rescue ships arrived and found nothing to rescue. The invaders called it an accident. Second strike cut a supply line that fed a dozen fleets. A third took a command ship that glowed too brightly. No broadcast followed. Dearth did not need witnesses. Now the galaxy watched anyway. Rumors moved faster than fleets. Worlds that had feared Earth began to listen. Worlds that had suffered learned hope. The invaders tried to regain the narrative. They returned to live feeds and showed empty space and claimed control. Then the feeds began to show something else. Invader ships failing in sequence as if touched by an unseen hand. Formations unraveling. Authority breaking. Humans did not reveal their weapons. They revealed outcomes weeks past. Their armada shrank. The invaders offered terms that sounded generous to those who had not watched the first night Earth. Answered with conditions: no more demonstrations, no more forced witnesses, open records, return what was taken. The invaders refused. They tried one final show of force and pushed everything they had toward Earth. They did not arrive together, they arrived in fragments because the pause could be stretched. And stretched again, the lattice guided the fragments into isolation. What followed was not a battle as the invaders understood it. It was a series of closures, doors that did not open power, that did not return command, that did not connect within a month. The species that had ruled by spectacle had no fleets left to command. Their home systems went quiet. Earth did not cheer there. Or memorials and lists and names read by volunteers until voices failed. 7 million lights were placed in the night sky and left there when other worlds finally spoke to Earth. They asked why humans had gone so far. Mira answered, first because you were watching Adam. Because learning is faster than fear. John finished, because we remembered the galaxy wrote new rules. After that, live demonstrations of harm became a crime that united distant powers. Earth helped write the rules and then stepped back, rebuilt and kept the lattice as a warning and a promise. Humans had been shown on a screen as prayed. They answered by becoming a lesson that could not be erased.